Hello everyone, I'm Greg Weaver. Welcome to The Audio Analyst. Back on May 2nd, with E129, the Børresen X3 loudspeakers in play, I was happy to be able to introduce you to the stellar performing $11,000 a pair Børresen Acoustics X3. At Exponent 2023 last May, I heard the astonishing $280,000 a pair M3s. Then, at Pacific Audio Fest this year, I heard their flagship $550,000 speakers, the M6s, which I featured in E131, Pacific Audio Fest, Next Level Hi-Fi, and Audio Group Denmark back on July 16th. Now, you might be interested to know that the $280,000 a pair M3s are being delivered and set up here behind me next Thursday, September 14th, by Audio Group Denmark's North American sales manager, Peter Hansen, and Chicago area retailer, Next Level Hi-Fi, for a full review. That written review will appear at Part-Time Audiophile upon completion, and I will have a companion video here, so stay tuned for that one. But after hearing the prototype of the Børresen X3 at last year's Capital Audio Fest, I've been more than mildly curious to give this little rascal a real test drive. Given my repeated exposure to the X3s at several shows since last November, and including my visit to the Audio Group Denmark factory in Aalborg last January, it has continued to impress me with its exceptional level of performance given its comparative affordability. Now, I'm not suggesting that with a retail of $11,000 a pair, that the X3 is readily affordable to the typical music lover. But this is a very competitive price range, one that includes some well-regarded loudspeakers, such as the Audio Solutions Figaro L, the Audio Vector R3 Areta, the Crystal Cable Arabesque Minissimo, the Focal Conta No. 2, or Sopra No. 1, the Golden Ear Technology Triton Reference, the Legacy Focus SE, a personal favorite, the Martin Logan Impression ESL 11A, the MBL 126, the Sonus Faber Olympica Nova 3 or Maxima Amateur, and the Vandersteen Treo CT, to name just a few. Yet, when compared to any of these other fine performing loudspeakers, one is simply forced to acknowledge the X3's outstanding accomplishments. I was thrilled to have a visit from my friend and colleague, Peter Hansen, as he dropped by my home on April 19th, the Wednesday immediately following Exponent 2023. We quickly unloaded his demo pair of X3s, schlepped them down my stairs and into my dedicated reference music room, the details of which you may see at my website. Now, because of the mandatory settling time required after the installation of the new Von Schweikert Audio Center Stage 2 footers, my reference Von Schweikert Audio Ultra 9s had just undergone the previous day, they could not be moved as yet. And while this denied the X3s their optimal placement, Peter was only too happy to demonstrate just how versatile they were and how easily they could be integrated into any room. Even in this necessarily wide placement, Peter started fine-tuning them and had them dialed in practically no time. He had also brought along several boxes full of Ansuz power products as well. Products such as a variety of cables, power distribution systems, networking devices, and noise control and isolation products, the first of which we implemented were the Ansuz Speaks A2 speaker cables at $4,600 for a 2-meter pair. Now, don't fret, I'll be discussing more of these items and their subsequent influences in more detail as we move further on into this remarkable audition. But just what makes the X3 so unique? First, you must understand that the X series of loudspeakers from Børresen don't just offer a new, more affordable point of entry into the Børresen loudspeaker lineup. They represent the applied trickle-down summation of the technology, experience, and knowledge Michael and AGD have accrued over the years in the process of creating the M, 0, and Z series of speakers. Standing at a svelte 50 3/4 inches tall, 13 1/2 inches wide, and 23 3/4 inches deep, and weighing in at some 121 pounds, the faceplate of the speaker sweeps back gently from the floor to its pinnacle. As well as offering a mechanical solution to driver and time alignment, this is, to my eyes, an extremely appealing aesthetic. This sexy-looking enclosure is fabricated from a heavily braced composite wood material, one chosen to help eliminate distortion by reducing mechanical influences, especially in combating hysteresis, which can be described as the mechanical lag between the input and output in a system caused by a change in direction. Hysteresis in magnetic materials is seen when a varying magnetic signal is applied and the resulting magnetism that is created follows the applied signal but with a delay. The bass section consists of 6 carefully calibrated and tuned bass reflex ports. The whole enclosure is reinforced with carbon fiber inserts, and the rear of the tweeter is vented to compensate for the fluctuation of the air pressure that builds up behind the proprietary Børresen ribbon driver. They are available in either a black or white piano lacquer finish. The tweeter membrane used for the X3s, and for all of the X series for that matter, is identical in design to that used in every other Børresen loudspeaker, right on up to the $550,000 a pair M6. And while they all use an extremely low moving mass ribbon, one weighing just 1/100th of a gram, in the X series the motor is subjected to a slight reduction of both its magnet and iron mass. Operating from about 2.5 kilohertz upwards, while this smaller motor yields a slightly lower efficiency, 90 dB in this alignment rather than about 94 achieved with the standard motor assembly, it is still an exceedingly efficient and blisteringly fast driver. Both the 4.5-inch midrange and the two 4.5-inch bass drivers use what is known as the X series membrane, the result of 3 skinned layers laminated into a single diaphragm, 2 layers of spread toe carbon fiber, with a 4mm sandwich core of Nomex honeycomb material laminated between them. Spread toe refers to the spreading of the individual fibers into a thinner, flatter dimension. In this case, a 5mm wide, high-strength carbon fiber toe is spread into a 25mm wide tape. Børresen asserts that the use of this spread toe sandwich creates an incredibly stiff and light cone, which is not only uniform in mass, but due to the toe orientation, the radial stiffness is spread evenly over the entire surface area such that a single-order membrane resonance is all but eliminated. This unique Børresen membrane yields an incredibly flat response with astonishingly reduced resonance. This construction further paved the way for them to build a smaller, lighter magnetic motor system, yet still offer both exceptional transparency and optimized costs. This composite layer diaphragm design, while not entirely dissimilar to that used by several other loudspeaker manufacturers, is unique to Børresen in that they do not outsource any of their construction processes. The stringent technological requirements necessitated that they design, develop, and assemble all the driver components in-house in their Aalborg factory. The mid-range and bass driver magnetic motor systems employ double copper caps on the pole rings to elevate its magnetic flux and to lower its electrical inductance, an adaptation originally developed for the Børresen Z series of loudspeakers. According to Børresen, this approach produces a novel response to flux changes, offering a better counter effect from these copper rings, yielding a flatter inductance curve and lowering the overall electromagnetic resonance. They also suggest that this lower inductance generates fewer spikes in the impedance curve, further resulting in a lower resistive load on the amplifier. Finally, its parallel crossover scheme, employing many of the same high-quality components used for the Z-series dividing networks, helps to minimize its self-resonance while providing a very mechanically stable crossover. So, what does all this advanced technology and effort, when focused on such an affordable, attractive, and compact package, accomplish? Keep in mind that these remarkable little Børresen speakers and Ansuz speaker cables, while being asked to take on the role of fronting my reference system, in essence, replacing over $250,000 worth of speakers and cables. Though these products sell for 17 times less than the gear they replaced, they still left some $500,000 worth of sources, electronics, and cables in front of them for this audition. If you are interested, you may see my entire reference system at my website. But Peter and I jokingly had thought about referring to this as the $511,000 speaker review. At first blush, before any settle time, while these X3s had seen plenty of playtime at shows and dealers, they had just landed in my system. These most affordable speakers from the Børresen lineup had absolutely no business sounding this bloody excellent. Bass was solid, and with the room reinforcement, given their penchant to install very close to the side walls, subjectively reaching down into the low 30 Hz range, with authority. They presented remarkably substantial weight and heft with tracks like No Sanctuary Here by Chris Jones from his 2003 Roadhouses and Automobiles release. Further, I was not expecting the composure with which they could convey gross dynamic scaling, not that they were flawless in this regard. But given this model's driver complement, unless really taxed, they were able to pull off a convincingly honest sense of macro-dynamic involvement. Finally, their ability to render low-frequency impact and speed was utterly impressive. The visceral assault on your senses throughout La Daddy from James Newton Howard's James Newton Howard and Friends was breathtaking. Their ability to so distinctly and powerfully articulate the music's power range, which J. Gordon Holt first labeled the bandwidth from 200 to 800 Hertz, was simply frightening for their asking price. Their mid-range performance often bordered on magical in terms of their tonal characteristics, their textural complexity, and their ability to convey relevant musical detail. Voices from David Bowie's rich, deep baritone crooning, through Ricky Lee Jones's wily, expressive soprano voice, so rife with its force and charm, to the hypnotic sound of the blended yet clearly distinguishable voices of David Crosby, Stephen Stills, and Graham Nash, are all reproduced with equally chilling body, intelligibility, and power. Challenging instruments like piano and violin are rendered with an amazingly realistic degree of dynamics, texture, and timbre. One of my favorite reference piano pieces is Rachmaninoff's Third Piano Concerto, as performed by my friend and the superbly accomplished pianist George Vashnadze. Here, the X3 not only treated me to an unexpectedly refined degree of expression, but given its unassuming lineage, and the obvious limitations that should entail, the extent to which they were able to lucidly expose and convey the remarkable hues, shades, and power that George's performance can alternately elicit from his piano was nothing short of remarkable. Moving to the upper frequency regions with the X3, this remarkable tweeter can render a delicately detailed, clearly resolute, and remarkably open performance, delivering that magical sense of sparkle and shimmer. In absolute terms, while this tweeter may not achieve the full measure of effortlessness and extension possible from those of today's finest loudspeaker offerings, it is indisputably encroaching on such achievements. It's a stirring overachiever that never gets harsh or shows any glare or edge unless those properties either exist in the recording or it is overdriven. While the X3 is no slouch in its ability to create a convincingly solid, three-dimensional soundstage, or to regenerate a well-accomplished impression of instrumental placement and size, in my installation, perhaps because of the necessarily wider than optimal placement, it was somewhat shallow front to back and limited in its vertical corporality. This is hardly a serious consideration, especially given its compromised placement here, its size and price, and the ridiculously extensive list of its other exceptional attributes. When we started to dabble with the Ansuz add-ons, things got better, and then better still. Installing a set of 8 Darks S2T adjustable resonance control footers, one under each of the speaker's 4 plinth footers, at $920 each, for a total of $7,360, it yielded an utterly unreal advance in performance. The immediate improvements in microdynamic nuance, tonal color authenticity, and overall resolve were among the greatest single advances we experienced as we applied the entire diverse Ansuz toolbox. Next up, Peter installed one of the $1,200 Sparks TC3 noise control devices into my dedicated 20-amp front AC entrance for my amplification, and we could clearly recognize further reduction of noise that allowed for an even better degree of articulation. The mains 8A3 powered distributor at $3,700, using a mains A2 power cable, $2,300 for 1 meter, and Power Switch D2 Ethernet switch at $6,600, with 3 of their digital Ethernet A2 network cables, $1,200 each for a meter, came next, along with a second Sparks TC3 noise control device installed in the A3 power distributor. And this brought yet another advance in the level of dark quietness that was inescapable. When he installed a pair of Sorts Ethernet noise control devices, $840 each, in the unused Ethernet ports of both my Ideon Absolute Stream server and Ideon Absolute Epsilon DAC, and 3 of the Sorts RCA noise control devices, $840 each, into the unused single-ended inputs on each of my AudioNet Max monoblocks and to the open single-ended source input on my AudioNet Pre-G2 line stage, though I had expected them to afford an obvious improvement, I was again pleasantly surprised by just how bloody effective they were. While the addition of all these Ansuz products added nearly $38,000 to the overall system total, suffice it to say that we enjoyed another step closer to a sense of total blackness, or a darkening of the silence behind which all of the music was able to emanate, a clear lowering of the noise floor, allowing for elevated clarity, articulation, and resolution, with every added Ansuz option. While I will clearly acknowledge that some are much more apparent and effective than others, they all made a clear difference. If you haven't gathered by this point what a staggeringly good loudspeaker the Børresen X3 is, let me put aside any further subtleties. This speaker not only offers excellent performance, soaring well above its loss leader asking price, but it also offers exceptional value. If Børresen Acoustics had placed a $22,000 or even a $25,000 MSRP on the X3, I wouldn't have batted an eye at those asking prices. This speaker is that good. It may well be the last speaker most burgeoning music lover audiophiles will ever need. On the other hand, if you are anywhere near as fanatical as me, they just may be your gateway to a further journey into the hyper audio realm. Regardless, bravo Børresen Acoustics and Audio Group Denmark. As always, thanks for taking the time to drop by today. Further information on supporting the channel may be found in today's description section or at my website, theaudioanalyst.com. Please stay safe and keep the music playing. Till next time, cheers.